Welcome to PASS Summit. Hope you have a great time. Hope you learn a lot. It'll be, hopefully you will learn everything you hope for here. If you do not, feel free, please, to email me. I will answer any of the questions I can on encryption for you. Just FYI, I was in Bob Ward's pre-con session, and I had to correct Bob Ward yesterday on something, and he said, thank you for correcting him and stuff. So it's a big product, so not everybody can know everything, of course, right? So, all right, so come on in. We're going to be talking about encrypting data within SQL Server. And I know this thing was working a while ago. There you go. Please silence your cell phones. Take them out. Put them away for your neighbors and stuff. I know that you've got business and all that kind of stuff. I actually had to get up earlier out of a session to answer some business, but please silence your cell phones. Explore everything that PASS has to offer for you. You know, there's 24 hours of PASS. You got the local SQL Saturday groups, SQL Saturdays, PASS Marathon, virtual groups, and get involved. Best way to really enjoy PASS is get involved with the family. It is a huge family. We come for a family reunion once a year to the summit. It's a great thing to do. My name's Tom Norman. I am a data architect. I was named the 2018 KPA Technology Employee of the Year this year. I got to go to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico with my wife. All expenses paid, courtesy of my company, with no vacation time taken. So I love that. Like I said, I am the PASS Virtualization Virtual Group Leader. There's my Twitter handle. I'm not on there all the time, but it alerts me if you ping me. Okay? So here's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about company data breaches, government regulations, different data protection types. We're going to go very in-depth in Always Encrypted. We're going to briefly skip over auditing data and data classification. Okay? So company data breaches. Do you recognize any of those companies? I would love to be off Facebook, but my stupid neighborhood, that's how they communicate with everybody in the neighborhood. I'm like going, we need to get off Facebook and go to Nextdoor. LabCorp. LabCorp is basically HIPAA data. Come on, guys, it's HIPAA data. You got financial data, you got, verification data. Now, for you US guys, and I know for you international guys, you'll have the same thing, but all of us have probably some type of credit report that when we want to go get a credit card, we need to basically go and, someone pulls a credit report for us to get that data. If you don't learn anything that I teach you today, go do this when you get done, okay? These are two apps that you can put on your phone, and what you can do is you can lock and unlock your credit report at will, okay? I forgot to unlock my credit report when I got a new credit card. They sent me a letter saying my credit was locked. Call them. I called them, unlocked my credit. 2 minutes later, it's locked back. Okay? So protect yourself. Our data is out there, guys. We're on the black market. The government's trying to regulate data privacy, and I'm basically telling them, you already it's left way out there. We're already out there. So go protect your credit. And if you're in some other country, I'm sure you've got some other credit bureaus that you can also do the same thing. Now, some government regulations that we have to deal with. We have personal identifiable information. Do we have anybody in the audience that does not have personal identifiable information in their database? I didn't think so. Everybody know what personal identifiable information is? It identifies you, okay? Now, you got GDPR, okay? We are all basically under GDPR. But if you think you're not under GDPR, look at the last one right there. The CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, goes into effect January 1, 2020. We got 2 months to get ready, if you're just now doing it, to get into that regulation if you got California customers, or you're going to be fined just like GDPR. Okay? So hop to it. Let's go. Then if you're in the credit card industry, you got PCI. And of course, if you're in healthcare, you got HIPAA. Now, our jobs as database professionals is to basically go and analyze the data. And what that basically means is that we're going to turn around and make sure that that data cannot be seen. It's going to either be encrypted or you're going to change it in such a way that they can't tell what the data is. I vote for encryption. It's easier, okay? Now, let's talk about the different data protection types within SQL Server. We have 3. We have transparent data encryption, we have cell level encryption, and we also have always encrypted. Now, with transparent data encryption, that actually came into play in 2005. Did you guys know that? I've been using it since 2005 because I was in the credit card industry. There is no application change required, but selects can still see the data, okay? And it doesn't do anything for your SSL connection. You have to basically configure it. Now, everybody goes, but it's an enterprise edition only feature. Guess what? 2019, you got it. It's standard now. Standard in 2019. You don't have to have enterprise once you go up to 2019. Yay, Microsoft, finally, right? So it is certificate enabled. We'll see how to do all this in a little bit. It does protect data at rest, okay? Data at rest means it's protecting your files, okay? So that's why I said a while ago, I'll give any of you my backup, because just as long as I give you the backup, but you don't have the encryption certificate, you're not going to restore it anywhere, okay? Have fun and try if you want to. All right, so cell level encryption also came into 2005. Because the latest version now you should really be on is 2012, 2012 and 2014 would be the only area you'd use cell level encryption. I would advocate to you, instead of putting this in, because you've got to go change the application, you have to have Enterprise Edition, and selects can still see the data if they've got the decrypt function. I advocate to you upgrade your servers to 2016 or higher. Okay, and if you're going to upgrade to 2016, you might as well just go 2019 at this point. Okay, go ahead and just skip all those versions. All right, so Always Encrypted. Always Encrypted came into play in 2016. It is client side, which we will explain more in a moment. It is .NET 4.6 or higher, and all that basically means is most of you are going to be higher than that .NET layer at this point. That's like 2016 numbers. Okay, it was Enterprise Edition only, but it came down to Standard Edition with 2016 SP1. So you can use it today in Standard, okay? Now let's talk about Always Encrypted a little bit more. Always Encrypted, we will go into it quite heavily here, is that there are 2 types. There's randomized and there's deterministic, okay? Today in 2016, I will tell you that I would never, ever do anything randomized. I would never do a field randomized. Why? Because if you go look at that where it says it prevents equality searches, you can't do anything with it, okay? And the first thing you do is when you encrypt that field, guess what? Your product team's going to go, hey, can I search on that field? And you're going to say, no, you're shot. You can't have that field anymore, okay? All of mine right now is deterministic, but that's going to change. That changes in 2019. 2019, I'm going to make them all randomized, because you're going to see, we're going to talk about just briefly a thing called enclave, okay? Enclave. Just remember that, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. Now, how do we set up Always Encrypted? The way we set up Always Encrypted is that there's 2 keys, okay? The 2 keys are column master key and there's a column encryption key. Okay, the column master key actually protects the column encryption key. The column master key is stored in the trusted store. You can see it in SSMS, and that is the one that you do want to script and back up, okay? Okay, you also want to back up the certificate that you use with it. Then column encryption key is the one that actually encrypts the fields. Now what makes that nice is that when you go rotate the keys, everybody know what rotate is, right? Just like you change passwords every year, or you should be changing your service account passwords, you should go change your encryption certificates every year, okay? What you change when you rotate is just the column master key. So it does it like that. I just did it like 3 weeks ago in my production environment. So now, Azure Key Vault is good, but how many people in here that your developers use .NET Core? Anybody use .NET Core? Ignore that, because .NET Core doesn't support it right now, okay? I'm not going, wait a minute, this stuff came out in 2016, you're telling me .NET Core doesn't? Yes, .NET Core. I just talked to her in the while ago in the hallway. Maybe by summertime, maybe. So we'll see when they get it out. But if you're an Azure SQL database, then you would want to use the Azure Key Vault because you would need to set it up to be able to set up Always Encrypted within Azure SQL database, okay? It gives you all the instructions, and we're not going to cover it much more than that. I do have a demo slide, though, if you need to do that, that's got all the steps in it, okay? Now, this shows you on Azure Key Vault. Basically, you would create it, and then you would have to log into your subscription and then create the Azure Key Vault. So that's for Azure SQL database. All right, so going back to the on-prem, you have an Always Encrypted has to be stored, the certificates have to be stored, the master key in a secure location, whether it's the Windows Certificate Store, Azure Key Vault, or key storage provider. Okay, now let's talk about this slide for a moment. You're not going to find this in any Microsoft documentation because I got it in 2016 and they got rid of it. I'm not going, why? This is the most beautiful slide that explains this for you. Now, pay attention to where you see the trusted slide and the slide in the middle. That's going to be any server that needs to actually connect to and see unencrypted data, okay? Your app server, your SSRS server, your SSIS server, whatever the case may be, anything that needs to see the data, it may even be that if you are a small shop, that may be you as the DBA, you're going to have that certificate on your machine. I do, because my machine is small enough, okay? Now, when you first start on the right side where you see SQL Server, you're basically going to that column master key. When you first create it, this is a picture, so I couldn't move that key back and forth. When you first create the column master key, it's actually on the SQL Server. But it doesn't stay there. You only want it there while you're encrypting fields or rotating fields. That's the only time that you want that column master key to actually reside on your SQL Server, okay? When you create it or when you are rotating the keys, okay? Now, note the way you see the data, and we'll see this in a moment. Everything that's coming from the application, you don't have to do with Always Encrypted 1 iota of change to your code without caveats. And I'll give you the caveats in a moment, okay? What happens is the application will pass through the social security number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, through the .NET layer. It's going to encrypt the data, and it's going to put it in the database encrypted. If you have rights to see the data, you'll see the unencrypted data. We'll see that in the demo, okay? Now, some attributes about Always Encrypted. The SSL is encrypted, okay? It encrypts data in memory, okay? It does work with Azure SQL database, as we talked about. There are no DML. You can't do any DML without permissions. If you are missing the 4.6 library, you are going to see a var binary field instead of what you defined, okay? If you define a varchar 9, but you don't have that .NET, then you'll get a var binary back, okay, when it comes out. But the correct setup, and you got the .NET library, is going to give you that value. It'll give you a varchar 9, okay? Now, accessing Always Encrypted data through SSMS, there are several different things that you need to do, okay? First of all, that column master key, you're going to have permissions to it, and it's going to have to be local to where you're doing it to be able to see the unencrypted data, okay? The other thing is, in the connection string, you're going to have that exact saying in your SQL Server Management Studio or connection string that's wanting to see unencrypted data. You must put column encryption setting equals enabled, okay? Now, the other thing is that if you're in SSMS specifically and you want to change data or select encrypted data, you're going to have to also select the parameterization for Always Encrypted, which we will see that in the demo, okay? Now, limitations of Always Encrypted. There's always limitations, right? People have told you that 2016 has limitations. It does. It's got quite a few. You cannot do an order by on an encrypted column. You cannot do a cast or convert. How many of us have birth dates that in the database that are still date time because you have legacy databases? You can't encrypt birth date then, because if you need to cast and convert it, you can't do it, okay? Temp tables, .NET Core, they finally started supporting Always Encrypted in April of 2019. That says 16, 17, 3 years later? Sorry, Microsoft, I got to give you a hard time. So, you can't do lacks, ranges, partition columns, or check constraints. That is changing with 2019. You're going to be able to do lacks and ranges, but remember with 2019, the issue is going to be is that they're adding some of that stuff slowly in. And we'll look at a picture here in a minute how 2019 is going to work. Okay? Now, yes, sir.
On that last slide, you said you cannot use it under those circumstances.
Yes.
So, is that handled by SSMS, or you've got to do the workarounds?
There is no workaround. So if you want the encrypted field, there is no workaround. So you're just shot. Don't encrypt the field if you want to do something. So he basically asked if there is any workaround to any of the limitations, and there is not. I've tried, you know. I've tried everything I can to do it, and there's not. All right, so when I implemented Always Encrypted, how many of us are actually perfect DBAs, and every time we create a parameter within the stored procedure, that we make sure that that field type exactly matches the table type? Okay, I know better than that, guys. I absolutely know better than that, okay? Well, one of the changes I had to make within our application when we converted it to use Always Encrypted is in my stored procedure, it was varchar 15 for the social security number it was passing in, but in the database it was varchar 9. Always Encrypted threw a nice encrypted error message to try to tell me that that's what the problem was. And when I said encrypted error message, I mean encrypted error message. I just got lucky to figure out that that's what it was, okay? When you are encrypting columns, you have to use the wizard basically to encrypt the columns. Especially the existing columns, okay? When you start the wizard up, don't fire it up at the database level. Do not fire it up at the database level. You could be like me and have a database that has 3,000 columns in it. Go ahead and fire it up at the database level, and you're going to be waiting for all 3,000 columns to come into that wizard, okay? Do it at the table level, okay? I'm telling you from experience. Go right ahead. If you don't believe me, you'll be waiting 15 minutes for it to open up for you, okay? SSDT, SQL Server Data Tools, does not convert existing fields. You do it with PowerShell, is what we did it with, and then SSDT goes in just fine. If it's a brand new column, it works perfectly beautifully, okay? SSDT works beautifully, okay? You might want to change your profiles. Now, what I would recommend when you're using the Always Encrypted and you're encrypting the columns, I would recommend that at the end where it says script out to PowerShell, which we'll see, do it, okay? Because then you would do it in your dev environment, you do it in your QA environment, you do it in UAT environment, and eventually into prod, right? Or do we have people that like to just go straight to prod? Yeah, don't do that, please. I didn't tell you that, okay? Now, always encrypted within 2019 is going to be possibly a lot better, we'll see. But look at those 5 boxes on the screen. That's what it takes to set up and get Always Encrypted working on a 2019 server. You gotta have a certain Windows build or higher. You have .NET 4.7.2. You gotta have .NET Framework data provider. You gotta have a configure Guardian host service in the environment, and you also have to register the SQL Server. That's a few steps, right? Okay. Last thing I heard, VM is not supported yet for 2019 if you're using VMware. Okay? It's coming, but it's not supported yet. So here's what 2019 looks like. So what happens is when they select the data again, and this time you're going to put a like in there, well, what it's going to send it all the way across is going to be encrypted, but what it will actually end up doing is it goes, oh, there's a like there, so we're going to have to send it to this secure enclave area that nobody can get to, or at least they say that. We're going to find out. And then they decrypt it, do the like, and then they'll send you the results back. My question is, and we're going to find out since it's been released now, what's performance going to be like? Having to go through all those steps. I don't know. You know, maybe they expect us to have this multi-million-dollar box, right, to run it. But we're going to see. All right. Now, Always Encrypted 2019, we talked about randomize. You can see there's a lot of things randomized. There's going to likes are there. Comparison operators beyond equals are supported. So if you want something besides a full equality, everybody knows what a full equality is, right? Thomas equals Thomas. It does not, Tom does not equal Thomas. So it's got to be a full equality for you to use it in 2016. Okay? Now, here's a slide from 2019 where you can see that I highlighted that transparent data encryption is now supported in 2019 standard. Okay? Now, SSIS. You're going to want to read encrypted data. In fact, this guy wants to read it. He's a contractor for me right now. Ask him how much fun he's having with Always Encrypted data because he's having to do what I gave him. So he just shakes his head, goes, ah. You've got to use ADO.NET connections. It's using the ADO.NET library to unencrypt, encrypt, right? No more, if you're going to use an encrypted field, you're not going to use OLADB. You've got to use, with the encrypted part of it, the field, you've got to use ADO.NET strings. And in that connection manager property, what's our field saying? Column encryption setting equals enabled. It's got to be there for you to see the unencrypted field, okay? Now, test. You didn't know you was going to get a test, did you? What do I encrypt? Okay, I heard someone say all of it. Anybody disagree? Huh? Okay. Here's what I encrypt. And I'll tell you why in just a moment because you got another test. What I encrypt. All of it? That's what I encrypt. Now, the reason I encrypt what I encrypt is that encryption causes performance. When you encrypt stuff, it's going to put performance load onto your server, specifically the CPU, okay? So you want to kind of watch and see what you had. I presented this in Raleigh, North Carolina, an auditor, and I made her answer the questions. She was in the audience right up here, and she answered the questions. The way I look at it, and she did not disagree with me, is if one field can identify you, then you encrypt it. If it takes multiple fields to identify you, I do not encrypt it, but I protect it in other ways. And what I mean encrypted, I mean cell level, always encrypted type of technology. I have, remember what I told you? Transparent data encryption running on my database. So all these encryption things that you saw, I've got running on my production database. Even the old 2005, which I need to convert, but it hasn't been converted yet. So the other thing I do besides that, besides protecting the data at rest, is I am auditing the data, so I know anybody that does whatever command they do against that PI or HIPAA data or whatever type of table it is, I know the exact query that they ran, okay? The exact query. And I get an email along with a bunch of other people every single day that goes, you touch that data, you touch that data, you touch that data. And depending upon whether I need to go have a talk with you or not, or my my security manager has to have a talk with you or not, would depend upon what you selected. So Big Brother is watching you, okay? And it's up to your auditor, basically, what you need to do. I will tell you that all those laws that we saw up there a while ago, and more, do not specifically tell you what to encrypt. It's not there.
So do you have TDE and Always Encrypted on top of each other?
Yes, sir. I do. I have TDE and Always Encrypted on top of each other in production. Okay? Now, let's talk about auditing data. So this is what we were talking about a while ago. This is where that I audit everything that's being selected. Okay? I audit the sensitive data. I gather the data, and then I send a report back. Okay? Now, sorry to say, I do not have the exact scripts for you to do that, but go see this guy on the 8th at 11 o'clock to talk about auditing, okay? How to audit the data, so data classification. Data classification is fairly new. This is something also that we want to turn around and review the data recommendations, okay, that we have. We'll look at that in a moment. We'll look at the type of data, and we'll also look at the sensitivity level. Again, go listen to Mr. Fritchie tomorrow, okay, I think that's tomorrow, at 10:15 about how to classify your data, okay? That is required by the new laws, by the way, okay? If you did not know it, you need to do data classification, okay? Now, I've given you several references, okay? The first one is very good on TDE, okay? Then also on Always Encrypted, a great one, and then about modifying data in SSMS. I've given you all those references, okay? This is what Microsoft does, okay, for GDPR compliance, okay? So some great documents to go download and read. And then the encryption blog tells you where Microsoft is going. So, are you ready for a demo and see it in action? Tired of me talking? I'm losing my voice, so it's about time to get the demo, right? So, let's go look at it. See what we've got. And now I have to stand in one location. That's hard for me to do. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our database, and you'll notice that we're in master. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to look and see what is encrypted in the database. Now, be aware that when you first encrypt, and the reason tempDB is shown encrypted there is because I've already had transparent data encryption turned on. When you first turn it on, it's going to encrypt tempDB also, okay? Transparent data encryption will. So, let's look exactly how to do this. First thing we're going to do to create a transparent data encryption key is we've got to go create a master key. And if you try to create a certificate without the master key, it's going to turn around and yell at you and tell you to go create the master key. So we're going to go ahead and create the master key. Okay? And then once we create the master key, the next thing we're going to go create is we're going to create the certificate also. Note and look at the expiry date on the certificate that I'm getting ready to institute. The expiry date, believe it or not, transparent data encryption doesn't care about it. I use it to know when to rotate it. We acquired a company, and they had a transparent data encryption on their database, and the certificate was 5 years old. Expired 5 years ago, okay, and it's still running. So I would say still rotate them, and so would an auditor. In fact, that auditor in Raleigh wanted me to rotate certificates monthly. And I looked at her and said, you're nuts. I'm not doing it. I'll do it annually, but I'm not doing it monthly, okay? All right, so once you got the certificate, what you will notice is you can actually see it by going to the master database. Oh, I didn't execute it yet. Would help to execute it, right? Get ahead of myself here a moment. There we go. Now let's go over here and look and do a refresh. And you will see the certificate right there that got created. Okay? That's how you create a transparent data encryption certificate. It's that easy. Now, the next thing you need to do is once you create that, is you've got to go turn it on. And FYI for you, the scripts are written in such a way, you can go do it against any database. Just point it to that database, and it will go put it in, because you will see it's filling in all the names there. So let's go run that. Once you do this, it does not show you anything in the database that you can tell that it actually is there. So we're going to go ahead and run this. Okay. It's created. Now, it's not quite on yet, okay? Encryption's there, but you've got to physically now turn it on for the database. So we'll go run this script here. Okay? And now if we go run that script again, and all these are in the download that you can get this, you will actually see that the database is encrypted. Past summit down at the very end is now encrypted. Okay? I'm sorry?
That's only partially true. Because if it was a really large database, it might still be happening in the background.
You are correct. Okay? If it's a large database, it might take some time. And we'll see the script in just a moment to where you can see the movement of it, of the different steps when it's happening. Okay? A small database happens very quick, of course, a demo. You don't want me to sit here and do a terabyte database. So, all right. The next thing you need to do is once you do that, is that certificate is very, very, very important. Okay? The master key, not so much, because you don't need that particular master key to restore the encrypted certificate. But you do need that certificate if you're going to restore that database anywhere. Okay? I.e., your server goes down and just bites the dust big time, hardware-wise, you need that certificate to basically to restore that database. Okay? If you don't have it, I'm sorry. And so is Microsoft. There's no back door. You're done. Just go write your resume and walk out the door and say, see you later. Have fun getting your database back in play. Okay? So go ahead and get that database backed up. Okay? Cannot write the file. I know why I can't write the file, because the file's already there. I thought I deleted it. So let's delete it right quick. And then I'll show it back to you. Notice that there is two files. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and delete them. Then I'll rerun that script, and it backs up. So if you ever see that error, I did it on purpose. No, I really didn't. Then you'll know that basically you already have a copy of it. So if you want to re-back it up, you need to get rid of the old one out of the directory. Okay? And it creates two files, as you saw. There's the two files right there that it created. Okay? First time I did it, I was like, why do I have two files? But you need both of them. Okay? Note also in the script here, you'll need a password. I just made it the certain name with a tilde. Okay? So you will need that. So now, We actually have another certificate you saw in the folder, which is a Dev QA certificate. You can go ahead and run this, and it will now go add that certificate. This would be if you go take that certificate and want to restore it on any other server, okay, to restore the database. You'll need the certificate plus the password. It just restored it. So now if I come over here and go back and look at master, you'll see that I've got not only the Dev QA one, but I also have the production one. Now, the reason I do Dev and QA, we obfuscate our data out of production, okay? And I flip the certificate and send it on to Dev. So they're working with encrypted data also, okay, in their development environment. You may not choose to do that, but that's what we do. Now, next thing you need to do is, we talked about rotating the certificate. So let's go rotate the certificate with that Dev QA certificate that we have. I'm going to run this entire script because that gentleman asked me a while ago, well, it may be in play, but if I don't run the whole script, you will not see it. But if I run the whole thing, see that number 6 right here? That's basically telling you that it's in progress. So back to your response right there, there's your query if you're doing a big database to find out kind of where is it in the process of getting the TDE done, okay? Is that query right there. And again, this is in a download location, so you can definitely go download it from the past website. Any questions before we move on to Always Encrypted? Yes, ma'am. If it's removed, you should have been able to restore it. If it's not removed, then all you got to do is put that certificate that was protecting it, restore it onto that new server, then restore your database. That's all you have to do that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
TDE affect the backups?
Yes, it does. Good point, because I didn't bring that up. Years ago, when I first put TDE in, we had went in and basically was going to a new server on 2005. I'd allocated a year and a half's worth of space, projected space. I turned TDE on, all my space was gone. Because you can't compress a TDE database. Now, they say you can today, but what really happens is they basically unencrypt it, compress it, and re-encrypt it. So you still got to have the space, okay? That's what happens, to my understanding. Huh? Yeah, yeah.
Question about temp DB. I noticed temp DB was encrypted, but temp files, temp tables are not able to be encrypted. So what would be encrypted in temp DB?
It's a data at rest. TDE is data at rest, so just the physical files are. So when you have it turned on for any of your databases, like I said, it turns on to TempDB automatically. You still use TempDB like normal. It's just for protecting the physical file itself. Okay? All right. Now, if you are using Azure SQL database, this is the script that you're going to want to use that I gave you to basically set up the column master key for Azure SQL database. It is a PowerShell script, and I pulled this directly out of Microsoft, so you should be able to find it, but it's also in the downloads for you. All right, so now let's go look at Always Encrypted. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to go select some data. Now, I see the unencrypted column. Why do I see the unencrypted column? Because I have rights to the certificate and I have this option column encryption enabled set. So I'm going to turn around and remove that. We're going to connect back to the database. We're going to run the column again. And you'll notice that it is now encrypted, okay? So if you didn't catch that, we'll run over it here again. Now, one thing to note that anybody needing to see the column encryption key and column master key, you do need to give them this security right, okay? The service account for your application, SSRS account, whatever, you need to give them that particular right. Now, let's go back down. We'll select some data again, but we're going to go ahead and go back to our connection string. Now, I want you to note one thing. If you've got a newer machine that's higher than that 1809 version, then you might see in SSMS that tab up there called Always Encrypted here. Ignore that unless you're on 2019. That's strictly the new enclave stuff, okay? So totally ignore that tab. What you really need here is you need to have right here in the additional connection parameters, you need to connect through that, or within your connection string of your application that must be in there. Now, with me putting that back in there, if I go do a select here, you're going to see the data. Again, I can see the Social Security number. Now, let's go down a little bit further. Can I do this? Yes or no? Any yeses? Y'all were paying attention. Good job. The answer is no. So, the reason I want to show you this is because here's one of the encrypted error messages that I want you to tell me when you see this error message that that's going to tell you that the problem was the order by. So, there's nothing in here that tells me that basically it was caused by the order by. So the error messages are cryptic at best. Yes, sir?
I guess that means that error message is used for where to just the order by that. Are we doing a sum over?
Yeah, you'll see like we'll continue to do some more fields that we're going to get some encrypted messages. So we'll go do a cast right here. So this would be the same thing with your birth date or whatever. Yeah, if I go across, the error message is just as bad. I'm not going to, it doesn't really tell me what it is, what's causing it. Yeah, implicit data type conversion. Huh? Really? Cannot, now this one does at least kind of give you the message. Cannot create a temp table since it's encrypted. This one does tell you. Thank you. I appreciate a non-encrypted message. Can I do this? I'm on 2016, I'm not on 2019. 2019, the answer would be yes, I could, if I had it all set up. 2016, the answer is no, I can't. Okay? I still get an error message. Okay? Arrange. Okay. I deliberately do this so you guys can see all this. What about range parameterized? Remember we talked about parameterized query a while ago? That we can check a flag for parameterization. Can we do this? It's still a range. So the answer is no. Can I insert data? I need to insert a row in the table. Nope. All right. We can insert data, though, if we turn around and turn on this little flag over here in Query Options, Advanced Options, all the way to the bottom. It's enabled parameterization for Always Encrypted. If that is on, okay. And let's make sure that our connection string still has column encryption equals enabled set. And it does. So now if we do this, we should be good. Voila, data's in the database. Now, note the format of this declare statement. It must be in exactly that format. Don't be like I do and do a declare variable and you do a return, select the variable and put a value in it, right? For Always Encrypted, if you're going to use that field, you've got to put it in exactly that format. Don't be funny. You can ask that guy right back there. He tried it, and I told him, it doesn't work. You got to put it in this exact format. So just FYI, you do have to have that exact format. Okay? Yes, sir.
So I didn't, the metadata that I called, is that exactly the same varchar 9? Is that what you mean by exactly the same?
Not only the varchar 9, but the way it's declared. Okay? Yes. You have to declare it just like that all the way across. You can't do a declare the variable varchar 9 return set the variable equals the value. Nope. Nope. It's got to be exactly in that format. And if it's not, you're not going to insert data. Do you believe me? You want me to try it? All right. I don't think I have any anything in there that's going to stop this from a uniqueness standpoint. See?
Then my next question is, if that column is null, and you want to put null in, you have to say equals null?
Yes. Yep, you do. You have to declare it exactly that, huh? Well, you could not even, when you insert it, if you're going to insert a null, his question was, can you insert a null? If you want to insert a null, then what you would turn around and do is you would basically not even put that field there in the insert statement.
For instance, if this was a parameter stored procedure, could you use the parameter directly, or would you have to put it into a variable and then do it?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
So let's say this inserts inside of a stored procedure.
Okay.
And an SSN is a parameter. Could you put the parameter in there? Or would you have to set it to a variable first and then use the variable?
I haven't tried that.
Okay.
I haven't tried that. So this guy might have tried it. Have you tried that? Not yet? He's listening. He's trying. Because what he's got over, I don't know how many thousands of rows that have encrypted data that he's got to go in and insert into a brand new table that's got an always encrypted social security number. So I basically said, okay, there's the format. You're going to have to do a cursor to put in all the rows. Because you can't even do set-based. Because you got to set the variable the way it says it's set the variable.
If you have generated stored procedures, that could be a bit of a headache.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder how replication would handle that.
I don't know. No, I haven't tried replication. So, yeah. All right, can you index it? If the field is deterministic, you can index the field, okay? The encrypted field. Coming with 2019, you can also index a randomized field, okay? But you can't do a randomized field right now. So, any questions on this part? All right, let's see how we create column master keys and column encryption keys, okay? So, the first thing to denote when you're doing this is that you need to be in the database which you are going to be working with, because Always Encrypted is actually at the database level, not the server level, okay? So be aware of that, because you can right there see the column encryption keys right there. Now, another thing to denote is that when we create the master key, it's going to be loading that into, in the demo, it's going to be loading that into the Windows certificate store. And because it's loading that certificate into the Windows certificate store, running SQL Server Management Studio, you need to be running it as an administrator. Everybody know how to do that? Right-click on SSMS, run as administrator, okay? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to create that column master key, okay? So let's look at that. Let's go create it. I think I've already done that, so if I did mine right, this should work. You would go right-click, new column master key. You would name it. Okay? You would tell it where you want to go. So remember that these are the storage locations to where you can see it, which you got the Windows Certificate Store local or current machine, local machine, Azure Key Vault, and a key storage provider. We're going to use local machine. And I did it right because my button is still enabled. If you were not in an administrator mode and you're going to local machine, that button would be disabled. It's going to be grayed out, okay? So once I do that, I can hit generate the certificate, and voila, there's my new certificate right up there, ready to go, okay? That's got my column master key. Now I need to turn around and do my column encryption key. I'm going to right-click on the column encryption key. I'm going to say new column encryption key. Again, I'm going to name it. I'm going to choose the certificate I have, and then I'm going to generate it. Now notice that I have two column master keys there. You can put into the database as many column master keys and as many column encryption keys as you want to. You can have a different one for every single field. Do I recommend it? No, because you got to maintenance all this stuff. I would recommend that basically per database you do one to encrypt all the columns. But if you got an auditor that just forces your hand, you could put in a different column master key and column encryption key per column you're going to encrypt. Does that make sense? Okay? You can really get crazy.
So you're saying SSMS in local admin mode?
You have to be in local admin mode for it to go into the, for the column master key to go into the Windows Certificate Store.
So if you go and strip out your previous step that you just did into SQL, it's not enough to run that SQL. You have to be local admin too?
No, it's not going to create it in the certificate store. Hold your thought for a moment, because I'm going to go show it to you in the encryption store, in the Windows Certificate Store. I'm going to show it in just a moment to you. So let's get this step, and then we'll go look at the next one. Okay? So go point your column master key to your column encryption key. Okay? So that is now created also, and we have it. Now, as DBAs, we never go into this area, but there's a called the mmc.exe. Okay? We're going to go in there. And I'm walking you all the way through it. It's Microsoft Management Console, okay? So you go File, Add Snap-in, go to Certificate, Add Certificate. We're going to go to the computer account, because we're putting in a local machine, and then we're going to finish, and we're going to say, go say OK, and then when we expand to personal, there's that certificate that I added. That's why you have to be in an admin mode, because it's got to add that to the certificate store within Windows. It's going external to SQL Server, okay? So you have to be in there to set this up. Now, one of the things I highly recommend, especially if you're going to be rotating your keys, I named this very simply just so I could turn around and do it quickly in a demo. You'll notice the names that I have on my other ones. If you go to go to properties down here, you can name the certificate whatever you want to name it. Now, because if you create it in SSMS, what happens is that SSMS will always name the certificate issued to Always Encrypted certificate issued by Always Encrypted certificate. I could go create 5 of those and it's going to have the exact same name. So go put a friendly name on it to help you out, okay? The other 2 that you see created there, I created them with SQL Server data tools, and that's why I actually have a physical name, okay? Now, remember I told you a while ago that you can only see the data if you have rights to the certificate to see the data. So if you're in a rather large shop, okay, and you as the DBA are not allowed to see the data, then you're not going to be in this area, okay? You're not going to be allowed to basically, you're not going to have rights to this. But I'm going to go ahead and add myself because I'm in a small shop. And what I have to do is I have to give my rights, self-rights to the certificate. And once I give myself rights to the certificate, now anything I encrypt with that particular certificate, I can see the data like you saw me see it a while ago. Because on the prod certificate, I have rights to that, okay? So what that means is if you have SSRS service account, your service account to your web server, anything that needs to see the data, an AD account is going to go in there, okay? But it's going to go in there because what you're going to do is you're going to export that key and you're going to move it to the application server, okay? You're going to move it to the application server and then you're going to give these rights to it. Because it's not going to stay on the SQL Server where it is right now, okay? It should never live there. It should be gone once you have exported it, okay? That's all explained in the step-by-step guide that is up on the website, okay, of how to do that.
So are you going to remove, did you say you're going to remove this Always Encrypted certificate once you export it from the SQL docs?
Yes, sir. So we're going to export it right now. So what you would do is you go right here and you go export. Okay, you would export the private key. It's going to ask you, it's going to be a PFX file, and it's going to ask you for a password. And then you tell it where you want to put the file. Okay. I'm going to put it in my encryption folder. Okay, I should have now in my folder, I now have this file. Well, I should have this file. Where did it go? It went right here. There's the file that I just created, okay? That file is the file that you're going to take and you're going to go put it over onto your web and app servers and import it in via the same tool, okay? And then you're going to give it the security that you saw me give it just a while ago. Yes, sir?
So that's why when you said when you restore it, you don't read that file, because that's the file that reveals the embedded encryption inside the database.
Correct, because we're going to basically go in here now. Let's go a little bit further. We're going to delete this certificate. That's what you would do on the SQL Server. Gone, okay? Now I am the app or web server or SSRS server or whatever it needs access to the encrypted data. What you would do is come back into the same exact tool. You're going to turn around and you're going to right-click, all tasks, import the certificate, okay? You're going to go next. You're going to go find the file name. Notice that it doesn't come up because you've got to also change the file type here. When you change the file type and you select it here, you then have to give it the password that I typed, and if I gave it right, Hopefully I typed it again the third time as a charm. And now the certificate is back in there. So that's what you would do to any web or app server. That's where you're going to put the certificate. Yes, sir.
Now, is this the key that you would import, so you'd have to broadcast it out to your app and web servers again, or is that somewhere else?
I'm sorry?
When you rotate your key,
Yes.
is this what you rotate? You have to redistribute it to your app and web?
Correct. So what I would have to do to rotate the key is I would have to come back and import it into the SQL Server, because I don't have it there. Then I import the new one, create the new one I'm going to have, and then I rotate them. Okay? That's what I do. Yes, sir?
That's basically a two-step process, right? It reads the encrypted data, encrypts it, then reads it.
Yeah, it's
Take a while.
yeah. Well, no, it doesn't take a while because it's the column master key just changing because it's only the column encryption key is actually what's encrypting the data. So actually flipping that is super quick because you're only flipping because column master key is what's protecting the column encryption key. Okay? TD, yeah, does it on the fly. You're right. It does. Okay. Any questions at this point about certificates and stuff like this, of how that works? Is everybody good?
I got one question for you. How do you manage all this?
How do you manage all this?
Because, you know, if you had like 300 servers, all the different encryption points, you know, is there a good method to manage all this? You'd have to know all the passwords.
Well, in my case, what I do is I basically, for the product, I have the same key all the way through. So it's like, so I'm basically turn around and I'm managing one key and not. So the thing of it is like I was saying a while ago, you can get and put it on every single field you want, be different, but don't. You got to manage it. So it's a pain when I rotate every year right now because we're running .NET Core and Azure Key Vault doesn't work yet. As soon as Azure Key Vault works, I'm hoping that it'll be just a quick flip and I'm done. They don't have to change anything. That's what I'm hoping. We'll see. Yes, sir.
So you distributed local cert first. How easy is that in SQL? Do you always have to generate cert first through SQL and then distribute it? Or can you have an existing cert that's already on all the servers and use it?
In this particular case, we actually have, we create the cert within SQL to do it. I don't know whether you can or not. I don't know whether you can bring your own homegrown cert from some cert provider because of the way that there's no way that, that within, you've got to have certain information to build it. And I don't think as you saw in the wizard, there was nowhere, when we did the column master key, there was nowhere to say, bring in my own key. They were making us go through the wizard. All right. Now, let's go look at a few more things here. Let's go look at SQL audit. Now, to rotate the key, we'll go ahead and rotate the key for column encryption key right quick. I have this that I've already pulled out from that one that's already inserted up in the that you saw in the master key. We would basically execute that to put that onto the to the database. To rotate the column master key, what you would do is you would right-click on the key that's active, go rotate, choose the key that you want to change it to, click OK, and you're not done. If you stop there, you'll have errors. Right-click on it again, turn around and go clean up. And by the way, I tried this through PowerShell, and PowerShell is not very happy right now doing it. So I'm hoping I have to try it again and see, but I tried to get it to do it through PowerShell. And then once you do that, I can turn around and delete the key because it is no longer being used. If it is in use, it won't let you delete it. Okay? That's how you rotate it. 2 steps. Right-click on it. Do it. Yes, sir.
Does your application have to be compatible for this type of encryption?
It's just got to be using the .NET layer, the .NET provider. Just as long as it's using the .NET provider, you're fine.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what it is. Because you got to remember, all this Always Encrypted is going through the .NET layer. Okay? So just as long as you've got that .NET layer, you're good. Okay?
You also have to modify the connection string to tell it to enable.
Yes, you do. Once you do it, you got to, like I was telling you before, and I've got an example in the slides I uploaded of where the connection string that you got to add in that column encryption setting equals enabled. Yeah, that's a mouthful to try to say it all the time. Yes, sir.
In your experience, do you have a situation where you have, some people need to have access and some people don't? Do you end up creating two server instances to make sure that never happens?
No, because if you don't want them to have access to see the data, you just don't give them rights to the common master key and they can't see it. Remember that very first select where I selected it and all I saw was encrypted key?
So same database, two different users. One has visibility, another one does not. They have access to the same SSRS box.
Yep.
How do you handle that?
Well, the way you handle it is back again that, okay, you got the two users, they both have their own security account, right?
SSRS.
And they're going even through SSRS, okay? One of them has rights to the certificate, one of them does not have rights to the column master key.
In the case of integrated security where it's passing through the
Yeah.
authentication. But if you had SSRS running its own account and you were using the service account, I guess that would be different.
Yeah, the service account, if you're running the account with service account, then everything that goes through there is going to be seeing it. The way I handle that is I basically have a secure folder of reports and a non-secure folder of reports. So as a user, well, not necessarily change it. If you got two users, one user would have access to the secured reports and non-secured reports, and the other user is going to have access to just the non-secured reports.
You have to change the connection string in the other one because it's the same service account.
No, because it's just who, if it's a service account, it's totally different.
That's what I'm imagining.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm thinking an individual.
There's two ways. You can have integrated security going straight through the database, but sometimes they prefer not that because it's a high maintenance thing.
Yeah,
Right, unless they have rules set up. But anyways, so that's one way, and I totally get that, because then you have to set up security for the master in order to encrypt it. But often what I see is they'll set up a service account at SSRS level.
yeah.
And you may have two people need to see the same report, but for one person it has to be garbage, and the other person actually sees it.
Yeah, in that particular account, if you're running it via, you can turn around and make the report run as login as a service, or, because when you create a report, you can turn around and designate that it doesn't run, that it has to run as the credentials of the person that's running the report. You would set that report up to make sure that that report runs with the credentials of the person.
Which means you have to go to the security of the database.
Yes.
They deploy a report.
Well, just for that one.
Just for that one report, though. So,
A lot of places they may just try to set up an SSRS service account and just use that, just to lower their database maintenance, especially if they don't have an EDA.
well, the thing of it is you're using, basically what you're using is you're using service accounts, and when you do,
Yeah,
it's fairly easy.
application security instead of database security.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to our audits. Remember I told you a while ago that basically I audit everything and I can see everything that's going on. So I just did some queries just so we can get some audit in there. And you'll need to go see the session about it from Ed. But right there is all the queries that I run. So I get this report every day that says, this person ran this report on this database on this schema. And I've got the exact query that he ran. Okay? So that's how I handle the other part of securing the data. The other thing that you would have is data classification. And with data classification, just as long as you have, I think SSMS 17, I think 17.4 or 5, it started being in there. What you do with data classification, you would right click on it, you would go to task, and you basically go data discovery, classify data, and there it goes and pulls, and of course on a larger database, it would go pull all the fields that basically have the potential of needing to be classified, And this is required by the new laws, guys. So you got to go classify all your data to basically say what is secure, what's not secure. Once you get this classified, the data classified, SQL Audit can automatically, in 2019, pick up and read that that was a secure data. Okay? Any questions about that?
So in the previous example of the audit,
Yes, sir.
is that a event that you have to define?
Yes, it is. You have to define it within that. I've got a couple scripts that if you want to get the card and you're curious about it, I can definitely give you the code that creates that, to do that, okay? Now, the other thing to note is if you're running SSDT like I am, you do need to, when you classify the fields, you need to go in and put in your table declaration these statements that actually go and does the same thing as the GUI does. It goes and classifies the data for you. Because if you don't put this in, next time you run SSDT, it'll wipe it all out. Yeah, so you don't want to do that. So make sure and go put it into your table declarations, okay? And I've got an example of that again in the demos. Huh?
Does all that classification extended property come with it if you extract it out?
If you strike it out?
Like, so if I'm in STT and import scripts from database, so it goes out and reads the schema out to the base.
Yeah.
Will that come with it if I do it?
If you don't have it in there, it'll remove it.
What I'm saying, like, I'm pulling it from the database into SSDT.
Yeah, it'll put it in there for you. It'll actually add it. So if you do it in SSDT, then you deploy it, it'll put it on the database. If it's not there already. If it's not there already. Huh?
If you sync from the database to your project, you will get those properties?
I don't know, because I don't have one that I've done brand new. It might. It might.
It's just the properties, right? Custom properties.
Yeah, it's just properties. It's just extended properties, all it is. Just an extended property. Okay. All right, so this is everything about SQL Server data tool encryption. The one thing I told you about that I did for you, there's your step-by-step guide. So go down there and download it, and basically that'll give you every bit of the information that you need to basically do what I just did, okay? I saw notebooks the other day, and I wish I would have had it, because I'd have put all this in a notebook, and then you could have done it that way. But it's in a PDF, and it's already uploaded up there, okay? Really step-by-step guide. Huh? On the past website, okay? It's on the past website. I didn't, because they didn't give it to me, but you'd still have to go get the reference from there, so. If you can't find it, get my business card up here, and I'll give you the link. I just don't have what it is, so. You can contact me at that email address if you need to. Other than that, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Of your presentation on that website doesn't have any of the Azure information, so it's not anymore.
No, it does have the Azure now.
I downloaded it during this class.
It did not? Well, I gave it to them Monday. They should have done it. Give,
And just to let everybody know, it's when you go into the schedule, look at class details, all the stuff at the bottom.
yeah. Grab my business card if you want the Azure SQL data stuff, and I'll send it to you. Because they should have upgraded, because I gave it to them. All right. Any other questions? My voice made it. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that TE ignores that expiration date.
Yes, it does.
Always encrypted.
It ignores it also.
Okay.
It ignores it also. It's not, your database won't stop. It won't stop. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.